What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to this week's video at Shorehaven Veterinary Hospital's YouTube channel. Now, in today's video, we're going to be covering the importance of the 4DX blood test, and I'd like to first start things off by asking a couple of questions. Number one, would you like to make sure that your dog is always healthy and happy? And number two, would you like to save thousands of dollars on treatment for a disease that could have been totally avoided? Now, if you said yes to any of those questions, you should definitely be aware of the 4DX blood test, which is a bundle of 4 tests that checks for 4 common diseases in dogs. One being the heartworm disease, and the other 3 being tick-borne diseases, which we will dive into much more detail in the next scene. All right, welcome to one of our exam rooms. Now, one of the tests in the 4DX bundle checks for Lyme disease, and Lyme disease is a zoonotic disease, which means it can impact both humans and animals. Lyme disease is usually spread through the bite of black-legged ticks, such as deer ticks, and Connecticut is unfortunately home to millions of deer ticks and other black-legged tick species, which is why we as Connecticut residents should know how to notice Lyme disease and avoid or prevent it. As a matter of fact, our medical director not too long ago actually got Lyme disease because one of his dogs brought a deer tick from outside into his house, and that deer tick ended up biting our medical director on the leg. Now, when dogs have Lyme disease, they will appear to experience generalized pain and almost completely lose their appetites. Many people have described their dogs with Lyme disease to seem as if they're walking on eggshells due to the generalized pain. Lyme disease also leads to high fevers, lameness, and limping. However, some pets will not display any of the aforementioned symptoms until a year after they've been infected with Lyme disease. But at this point, the disease may already be spread throughout the body and become fatal. And that's exactly why we need to make sure that we give our dogs a Lyme vaccination and make sure that the 4DX bundle blood test is run on a yearly basis. The second tick-borne disease that the 4DX bundle checks for is called rlichiosis, which is a funny name, but it's the real name of a disease that is spread by ticks. Now, Ehrlichia is the name of the bacteria that lives in ticks, and ticks will spread the disease called rlichiosis by biting our dogs. Several tick species are known to carry this disease, but the most common ones are Ehrlichiosis symptoms can be acute or immediate and chronic or long-term. The acute immediate symptoms usually appear between 7 to 21 days since the dog has been bitten by an infected tick. So the acute immediate symptoms are most common during the summer when ticks are very active. Here are the acute or immediate symptoms of ehrlichiosis. On the other hand, the chronic or long-term symptoms of ehrlichiosis can appear in any season, and here they are. All right, the third tick-borne disease that the 4DX bundle checks for is called anaplasmosis. Anaplasma is the bacteria that lives in ticks, and ticks with anaplasma will spread the disease called anaplasmosis by biting our dogs. Now, anaplasmosis is usually spread by, once again, black-legged ticks, so we as Connecticut residents have to be extra careful. Once bitten, it takes at least 1 to 2 weeks for clinical signs of anaplasmosis to develop. However, once again, some dogs may never develop the clinical signs of anaplasmosis, or even if they do, they may be nonspecific and too vague to actually diagnose. In the US, anaplasmosis is most common, as you can expect, in the Northeast, in the Midwest, and West Coast. Medications must be administered on a timely basis for both anaplasmosis and ehrlichiosis. Last but certainly not least, the fourth disease that the 4DX bundle checks for is called heartworm disease. Believe it or not, Heartworms are actually contracted from mosquito bites, and mosquitoes that carry the heartworm disease have become more common everywhere in the United States. Heartworm disease is known to be most common along the Gulf and Atlantic coasts, which we as Connecticut residents are very close to. So, what is heartworm disease? Heartworm disease is caused by a parasite called Dirofilaria immitis, and the disease leads to heart failure, organ damage, severe lung disease, and ultimately death. Once heartworms enter a dog's body, they mature, mate, and produce offspring while inhabiting the dog's body. Adult heartworms live in the heart, lungs, and other associated blood vessels of an infected animal. What's frightening is some dogs never show symptoms of heartworm infection until it's too late. However, some may develop a cough or act lethargic. Plus, something to keep in mind is that mosquitoes with heartworm disease can be found at any time of the year and even inside of our homes. Needless to say, all dogs, even those that only stay indoors, must get an annual 4DX blood test and be on monthly preventatives for heartworms and ticks. Alright, now that we are aware of the fact that the aforementioned 4 deadly diseases do not always lead to clear or obvious clinical signs, I think we're all on the same page, which is that the 4DX bundle blood test is an imperative part to our pet's annual wellness visit. After all, the 4DX blood test can end up being a life-saving diagnostic tool, so we should make sure that our dogs get the 4DX blood test every year and are on year-round monthly preventatives so that we keep heartworms away from inhabiting our dog's important organs, and we also stay away from those tick-borne diseases that are zoonotic in most cases. If your pet, your dog, has not gotten a 4DX blood test run within the last year, please give us a call. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's video. We'll see you in the next week's video. Leave your comments and questions in the comment section below.